The Cats in Krasinski Square by Karen Hess, illustrated by Wendy Watson. This book takes place in Warsaw, Poland during World War II. The cats come from the cracks in the wall, the dark corners, the openings in the rubble. They know I can offer only a gentle hand, a tender voice. They have no choice but to come. They belonged once to someone. They slept on sofa cushions and ate from crystal dishes. They purred, furrowing the chests, nuzzling the chins of their beloveds. Now they have no one to kiss their velvet heads, I whisper. I have no food to spare. The cats don't care. I can keep my fistful of bread, my watery soup, my potato, so much more than my friend Michal gets behind the wall of the ghetto. The cats don't need me feeding them. They get by nicely on mice. I look like any child playing with cats in the daylight in Warsaw. My Jewish armband burned with the rags I wore when I escaped the ghetto. I wear my Polish look. I walk my Polish walk. Polish words float from my lips, and I am almost safe, almost invisible, moving through Krasinski Square, past the dizzy girls riding the merry-go-round. My brave sister, Mira, all that is left of our family. My brave sister tells me the plan, the newest plan, to smuggle food inside the ghetto. Her friends will come on the train, carrying satchels filled not with clothes or books, but bread, groats, and sugar. Groats are like oats. I know the openings in the wall. The cats have taught me. I show Mira on a map her friend Arik has drawn. Every crack will be filled with food, Mira says, bringing our thin soup to simmer on the ring. I ask to smuggle the bread through the spot near Krasinski Square, where Michal lives on the other side of the wall. Mira knows the danger, but she nods. I fall back onto the mattress, and the big room dances with light. But on the day when the train is already rolling toward Warsaw, Arik, breathless, bursts into our room and says the Gestapo knows of the train and the satchels, and they'll be waiting at the station with their dogs to sniff out the smugglers. The look that passes between Arik and Mira frightens me more than a knock on the door in the night. And the Gestapo are the German state police. I cannot remain inside. Instead, I wear my Polish look. I walk my Polish walk. Polish words float from my lips as I move through Krasinski Square, singing a nonsense song. The cats come from the cracks in the wall, the dark corners, the openings in the rubble, and I know what we must do. We gather the cats one by one, Mira and Arik, Henrik and Marek, Hanna and Anna, Tasia and Stasia. We gather the cats into baskets. And head to the station, where we spread out, waiting for the train behind the Gestapo and their straining, snarling dogs. Suddenly, steam and the scream of the whistle. The train pulls in. Passengers stream off. The dogs are set loose. Their sharp barks echo through the station. They fly toward the men and women, the girls and boys, with the strong scent of bread, groats, and sugar about them. But before the dogs can reach their prey, we open our baskets and let the cats loose. The station explodes into chaos as frenzied dogs turn their wild hunger on the cats, who flee in every direction, slipping through cracks into dark corners between openings. The smuggled food vanishes from the station, vanishes from our side of Warsaw, through the wall, over the wall, under the wall, into the ghetto, including my basket with a loaf of bread from Michal, taken by grateful hands. And the music from the merry-go-round floats in the air, rising tinsel bright above Krasinski Square. Author's note. In 2001, I came across a short article about cats outfoxing the Gestapo at the train station in Warsaw during World War II. I couldn't get the story out of my mind, so I went in search of accounts of the Warsaw Ghetto and the Jewish resistance in Poland. The two most valuable sources I found were the Ringelblum archives and Adina Blady Schwager's book, I Remember Nothing More. Mira, the fictional older sister of the narrator in The Cats in Krasinski Square, was inspired by Adina. I owe the texture and substance of this book to her account of her experiences with the Jewish resistance. Historical note. In late September 1939, at the beginning of World War II, Warsaw, the capital of Poland, fell into the hands of the attacking Germans. The Gestapo, German state police, forced all Jewish men, women, and children from Warsaw and its surrounding towns to live on certain streets within the invaded city. If non-Jews lived in any of the buildings on these streets, they received orders to move out. A high brick wall was built to keep the Jewish people in, separated from the Aryans, non-Jewish, quote-unquote, whites, who lived on the other side. By the time the Gestapo collected all the local Jewish people, the overcrowding inside the Warsaw Ghetto created conditions ripe for disease and hunger. Every day, hundreds of men, women, and children fell in the streets, too ill to take another step, and in those streets they died. In July 1942, the Germans began carrying out their plan to relocate Warsaw Jews. The youngest and oldest disappeared from the ghetto first, at a rate of 2,000, then 10,000, then 20,000 people per day. The weakest were killed before they ever left Warsaw. Eventually, the Germans emptied the ghetto of all Jews, but those working in war plants. Even though they were physically and emotionally exhausted, many Jews fought back. Thousands of brave young men and women planned ways to upset the Nazis' plans. The Jews formed an opposition group, causing trouble for the Germans whenever possible. At great risk, these daring Jews snuck people out of, and weapons, food, and medicine into, the ghetto, saving thousands of Jewish lives. In April 1943, the German army had every advantage when the last battle against the Warsaw Ghetto fighters began. And yet, this handful of sick, starving, and injured civilians held off an army of trained German soldiers for over 40 days. As the Germans bombed and set buildings on fire, the Jewish resistance, leading their attacks from basements, attics, and hidden passages, knew the chance for a victory over the Germans was impossible. Yet, even after the buildings within the ghetto were flattened, small pockets of fighters rose up and did battle against the Nazis, waging a war until death. Not every Jew died. Those who passed as Polish on the Aryan side of the wall aided the escape of several hundred Jewish fighters. These daring warriors struggled out of the ghetto toward freedom, neck deep through the filth and stench of the sewers beneath Warsaw. The last survivors of the Jewish ghetto came forward at war's end to tell the terrible truth of the deeds carried out by the Nazis. Thank you for listening to The Cats in Krasinski Square by Karen Hess.